A Formula One tire looks like a simple piece of rubber, right? But here's the thing. It might just be the most sophisticated component on the entire grid. A few degrees of temperature change, and a driver goes from pole position to the back of the pack. So what's really happening inside that tire, lap after lap? Today, we're diving deep into the engineering that decides races, and it all comes down to understanding what you can't see. For decades, the tire was just a tire. But somewhere around the 1980s, engineers realized something profound. You could design a tire that was almost as important as the engine itself. Today, a Formula One tire is a living, breathing system that responds to every input. Track temperature, brake pressure, fuel load, even the driver's setup choices from that morning. The thing is, tires have a narrow operating window, their sweet spot. Get them too cold, and they're like driving on ice. Too hot, and they start to degrade. Finding that window and keeping your tires in it longer than your rival, that's often the difference between victory and defeat. We've seen championships decided by tire strategy. We've seen drivers lose world titles because they managed their tires poorly on a single afternoon. Drivers like Lewis Hamilton have built entire careers on tire management mastery. So let's look at what's really going on inside that rubber. Because understanding the tire means understanding modern Formula One. Let's start with the structure, because a modern F1 tire isn't just solid rubber. It's an intricate sandwich of materials, each with a specific job to do. At the core, you've got a steel belt running around the tire, almost like an invisible skeleton, holding everything together under extreme forces and speeds that would shred a road car tire in seconds. Wrapped around that are layers of different rubbers. And this is where it gets really clever. The inner rubber is designed to flex and absorb energy from every bump and corner, while the outer layer, the compound we always hear commentators talking about, is engineered to create grip. Now, grip sounds simple, but it's actually a delicate dance between friction and heat. When a tire grips, rubber molecules are essentially sticking to the track surface through microscopic interactions. But here's the thing, that friction generates heat, and heat changes everything about how the tire behaves. Imagine you're starting a race. The tires are cold, maybe around 30–40 degrees Celsius. They're hard and slippery, almost like driving on marbles. The driver has to be gentle, building heat gradually through smooth inputs and acceleration. But as the car brakes hard into a corner, as the engine accelerates out, as the front tires turn and grip pulls laterally, heat climbs. 5 laps in, the tire might be at 80–90 degrees. Suddenly, it's responsive. It talks to the driver. The car feels alive. This is the sweet spot. The operating window. Around 80–100 degrees Celsius for most modern F1 compounds, the rubber reaches its optimal grip. The molecules are mobile but not chaotic. The contact patch, that's the area of rubber actually touching the track, is perfectly sized to create maximum grip without wasting energy. But push too hard, and temperatures keep climbing. The tire enters its upper operating range, and now something counterintuitive happens. It starts to get worse, not better. The rubber becomes almost sticky, overly deformable. Grip doesn't increase, it actually decreases. Drivers call this the tire falling off a cliff. On top of that, extreme heat accelerates wear. The rubber compound isn't infinite, it's consumed by friction. You can literally see a tire worn down in a single stint, the rubber layer reduced by millimeters after just 20 or 30 laps of hard racing. And it's not uniform wear either. The inside edge of a corner might be overheating while the outside stays cooler, or vice versa, depending on your line and your car setup. Uneven wear means unpredictable grip, and unpredictable grip is a driver's nightmare. Then there's air pressure, another invisible variable that completely changes the game. Put too much air in the tire, and the contact patch becomes smaller and harder. Too little, and you get too much flex and excessive heat buildup. Throughout a race weekend, engineers are monitoring pressures constantly because even a zero point 0.1 bar difference can shift grip levels, braking distances, and how the car responds to steering input. It's precision measured in fractions. And here's something beautiful. Modern F1 tires have telemetry sensors built right into them, sending real-time data back to the pit wall. Temperatures at multiple points, pressure, or even wear rates, engineers can see inside that tire almost like they have X-ray vision. So when you watch a pit stop and the engineers are making tiny adjustments to wing angles or suspension geometry, they're often reacting to tire data you'll never see on screen. They're chasing that perfect operating window, that invisible sweet spot where lap times are fastest and degradation is minimized. And that's the game of modern Formula One. Keep your tires in that narrow band of perfection while your rivals' tires are either too cold or burning up. Master that, and you master the sport. Let's look at some moments where this invisible battle inside the tire decided everything. Take the 2016 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the final race of the season, with Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg separated by a single point. Rosberg led, but as the race wore on, his tires began to degrade faster than anyone expected. The tire data showed it: front left temperature climbing, pressure rising. Hamilton, running a different compound strategy just one lap behind, kept his tires in that sweet spot longer. In the closing laps, with Rosberg's tires shot, Hamilton closed in and took the championship. The tires didn't lie, they never do. Or look back to the 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix in the rain, one of the greatest wet weather drives ever. Felipe Massa's Ferrari was leading, his tires warm and working perfectly on the damp track. But as conditions changed lap by lap, tire temperatures fluctuated wildly. Some drivers found the grip window early, others lost it. Lewis Hamilton, then a rookie in a McLaren, managed his tire temperature masterfully through that chaos, making passes and ultimately fighting for the lead. That race showed us that tire management in changing conditions isn't just about mechanics. It's about reading the track and feeling what's happening beneath you. And then there's the 2021 Abu Dhabi finale between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Going into that final lap, both drivers were on the same tire age, same pressure. But Hamilton had managed his tire temperature through the entire race slightly better, keeping more life in reserve. When that safety car came out and one lap remained, Verstappen had fresher rubber and the racing room to use it. People remember the drama of that last corner, but what enabled it was tire strategy. Who had what left in the tank? These aren't stories about luck. They're about teams who understood their tires deeply enough to predict how they'd behave, when they'd peak, and when they'd fade. And drivers who could feel those changes through the steering wheel and adapt their line, their braking, their throttle application accordingly. That's the real race happening on track, unseen, unmeasured by the naked eye, but absolutely decisive. Now imagine, for a moment, if teams couldn't read their tires at all, if they had no data, no sensors, no way to know temperature or pressure during a race. A driver would be flying blind, adjusting his line and throttle based purely on feel, with no engineer telling him whether his front left was overheating or his rears were still cold. Chaos, right? But here's the thing. That's almost exactly how it was in the 1980s and early 90s. Teams had basic telemetry, sure, but nothing like today's real-time thermal imaging and pressure monitoring. Back then, a driver had to develop an almost supernatural sense of what the tire was doing, learning through hundreds of laps how the car felt when grip was building, when it was peaking, and when it was about to fall off a cliff. Now fast forward to today, where a single tire sensor failure can cost a team millions and a tenth of a second per lap. We've become so dependent on that data that if it vanished tomorrow, even our best drivers would struggle for the first few laps to find their rhythm. That tells you something profound. The modern F1 tire isn't just a component anymore. It's a conversation between driver, machine, and engineer, speaking in real time through numbers and temperatures. And the teams who listen hardest to that conversation are the ones crossing the line first. So here's what we've learned. An F1 tyre is vastly more complex than it appears, changing character with every single lap as temperatures, pressures, and compounds evolve. Second, temperature control is everything. Stay a few degrees too cold and you've got no grip, but overheat by just as much, and the rubber degrades faster than you'd believe. And third, modern teams have become dependent on real-time data in ways that would astound drivers from even 20 years ago. The conversation between car, tyre, and engineer happens at the speed of telemetry now. If you want to understand Formula One, you have to understand tyres, because without them, every brilliant chassis and every powerful engine means absolutely nothing. So tell us in the comments, which aspect of F1 technology should we dive into next? Brake systems, hybrid power units, or aerodynamics? And if you loved this deep dive, please subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an episode where we pull back the curtain on the sport we love.